G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here with the second part, very final ending part of Outsiders, and then First Dog on the Moon, and then I'll probably have a bit of a rant.
To the policies adopted and to the target. I think that's useful. And they can also measure then or interrogate the quality of the economic growth and how inclusive it is or how sustainable it is. I think it's really important for citizens of G20 countries to take some ownership of the G20 and to understand what's going on at the G20 and to hold their leaders account for what they pledge at the G20. But I am hoping in the communique this afternoon to see a reference to an ambitious target to increase female labour participation.
Well, that's, I'm afraid, all we have time for on Outsiders this morning. Susan Harris-Rimmer, Director of Studies at the ANU Asia Pacific College of Diplomacy, Charis Palmer, Deputy Business Editor with The Conversation, and Professor John Curtin, Co-Director of the G20 Research Group at the Monk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto. Thank you all so much for politely slipping away from the G20's festivities and sharing your insights. Now time to cross from the G20 to the First Dog on the Moon Institute for Modern Living.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome to First Dog on the Moon's Guide to Modern Living. I'm Walkley Award-winning cartoonist for The Guardian, First Dog on the Moon. Okay, so this is funny. While we were busily trying to hack bits off the renewable energy target, we suddenly find out that China and the USA have entered into the most extraordinary response to climate change in the history of international relations. Extraordinary because it looks like they're actually going to do something. And doesn't Tony look like a bit of a deal? I shouldn't laugh though. Climate change is a deadly serious business. Remember when Tony was in New York but chose not to go to the UN climate change talks? That's when the US and China were putting this whole thing together. No wonder they didn't tell him. And of course, the Daily Rupert isn't interested in reporting any of this. They're breathlessly reporting the Russian boats. It's important to focus on Tony as an international statesperson. It's the only area where he has any traction in the polls. However, that may change now. Sure, we know he didn't actually mean he was going to punch Putin in the chops with his shirt front, but having a quick word during morning tea with a miniature Danish in one hand and a cup of English breakfast in the other isn't the same as getting Vlad to help out with MH17 or, in fact, anything else ever. The G20's been quickly turned from an opportunity for Kevin 747, oh no, I mean Tony Airbus. Remember, Tony's travelled as extensively as Kevin ever did, but you don't hear anyone complaining. It's been turned into an opportunity for Tony Airbus to strut around telling anyone in hearing distance how great direct action is and how it fits very nicely with the plan the USA and China cooked up without telling him. Why didn't they tell him? Because he tore up a working carbon pricing scheme. He's peddling furiously to ruin investment in renewables, which is costing jobs, of course, and direct action, on one hand, funnels money to transnational mining corporations, and on the other, is just a fig leaf to cover up the government's tiny action on climate change genitals. Tony says we don't want action in 16 years, we want it now. Might be a bit late for that, but I'm sure it'll play well in the middle bit of the Australian. You can't have it both ways, Tony. Either climate change is crap or direct action is crap. Which is it? I think we know which it is. The Prime Minister is the international poster boy for what not to do. And then, of course, after the G20's over and everyone goes home...
Good afternoon, passengers. This is the pre-boarding announcement for Flight 117 to Doing Something About Climate Changistan. We'll be boarding shortly, so please have your boarding pass ready. We're now inviting those passengers requiring special assistance and those with small children or an Environment Minister to begin boarding at this time. Please have your boarding pass and identification ready. Regular boarding will begin in a few moments. Thank you. This is a special announcement for passengers T. Abbott and G. Hunt. If you're in the terminal, please make yourself known to staff at Gate 1 as your plane to Doing Something About Climate Changistan is fully boarded and waiting takeoff.
Well, there you go. As they said, really sucks to be Tony Abbott at the moment, doesn't it? He got really rude to Comrade Colonel President Putin And then when Tony Abbott came back to Australia, he discovered that there was a Russian naval battle fleet steaming down the eastern side of the Great Barrier Reef to park off Brisbane, so that when Comrade Colonel President Putin shows up in Brisbane, he's got a little bit of military muscle behind him to back him up, kind of like more than the entire Australian military farces, which are at the moment bogged down in a place called Iraqistan. Fighting with the Islamic State of Levant, because Tony Abbott would rather waste $500 million or $1 billion running around the desert bombing third-hand Humvees that the Americans gave to the Iraqis, who then abandoned them in the face of the advances of the Islamic State of Levant. I just don't understand the alleged cost-effectiveness of taking F-18s, which are twin-engine jet fighters, at $10,000 per hour per engine, and swanning around on a 6 or 8 hour mission being aerially refueled to drop $100,000 bombs on third-hand cars and camel caravans or whatever it is. All because some people have a really twisted view of one of the Abrahamic triad of religions. Now, the Abrahamic triad, as you all know, is Judaism, Christianity and Islam, and it's all heavily anchored in the Mosaic 10 Commandments, one of which is thou shalt not kill. So we get Tony Abbott claiming that ISIL is anti-God. That's why Australia has to go and bomb third-hand Humvees in the sand dunes. I heard a really interesting thing about violently extreme militaristic viewpoints, as in anybody who's prepared to pay taxes for their military to go and fight and kill strangers somewhere else. The researchers said to the people in Israel and in Palestine, or Gaza as they like to call it, they said to the Israelis, "Why are you fighting?" And all of the Israelis said, "Oh, we are fighting because we love our families, we love our kids, we love our parents, we love our siblings, we love our culture, we love our cities, we love our way of life, we love our liberty. Love, 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 love. Why are you fighting? Love." They went and asked the Palestinians in Gaza, "Why are you fighting?" "Oh, because we love our family, we love our land, we love our way of life, we love our culture, we love our kids and parents and siblings. Love, 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 love." I said to the Israelis, "Why do you think the Palestinians are fighting against you?" "Oh, that's because they're evil. They hate us." So they said to the Gazans and Palestinians, "Why do you think the Israelis are fighting against you?" "Oh, that's because they hate us, because they're evil." You can extrapolate those figures to any extreme violent group or any extreme violent individual. You ask the wackos at Wacko in the excited states, the Branch Davidians. We asked that fella who blew up the FBI building, "What are you doing it for?" "Oh, I'm doing it because I love liberty and I love this and I love..." "And what about the people who are fighting against you?" "Oh, well, you know, like they just hate liberty and they hate this." It is a really, really, really super common trap for beginners, for simpletons, for people who don't think shit through. Get your head around the idea that everybody thinks that they personally are a pretty good person, well motivated for good reasons, acting in the best interests of everybody that they know and care about. I don't believe that even Hitler got up in the morning thinking, "Oh, right, I'm going to go and commit a whole lot of evil shit today because I'm an asshole, you know, I just want to do bad shit." No, he didn't. He thought he was saving the world for the 1,000-year Reich so that the great Volk, the Herrenvolk, the Aryan people could go onward and upward. That's what they thought. That's what he thought he was doing. Stalin, he thought he was a good bloke. I mean, he thought he was in it for the win, but he didn't think he was doing anything wrong. So I would suggest that anybody who believes that due to their love for themselves and their way of life and their friends, therefore their enemies must obviously hate them, they should automatically default to the position that that is an error mode. If you think you have a right to shoot somebody because you believe they hate you, you are automatically wrong. Just completely bloody wrong. About as wrong as Tony Abbott with his theory that burning coal is good for humanity. In August 2013, I posted a video that said vote green or die, and only 7% of Australia voted green. The other 93%, they voted to effectively do nothing about anthropogenic global warming caused by the release of greenhouse gases. Well, yesterday here under the trees, it was 35 degrees. In the clearing, it was 50. And we're only part way through November. You know, we're going to keep getting hotter and hotter and hotter days till about the end of January. I was talking to an ageing climate science denialist during the week, and she said that she wasn't really interested in paying attention to what the scientists had to say because they all went no, they were all in the pay of the Labor Party. That's the Australian sort of workers, employees party. And because the Labor Party has ancient socialist connections, therefore, according to her brand of politics, they're automatically communists and you know, wicked and evil. And I said to her, look, hang on. If a doctor told you they'd looked in a microscope and because of what they had seen, you had to have your arm cut off or your head chopped open or your boob cut off or you had to be injected with poison because you were going to die, or they wanted to cut your belly open and throw away half your intestines because of what they'd seen looking down the microscope, you would trust that doctor regardless of what university he went to or she went to or who they voted for, because you would trust the science. And she said sort of, yeah. I said, right, so why is it that when a whole bunch of scientists who are equally specialised and well-trained and well-informed so that they actually know what they're talking about and they don't speak loosely or sloppily just for the fun of attention seeking, if they tell you that if you don't stop emitting carbon dioxide, the planet is going to warm to the point where all the frozen methane is going to start to melt and join the carbon dioxide, and the climate will go to shit, and we won't be able to grow food. Once we get to the point where we get lots and lots and lots of days above 38 degrees air temperature, people have got nowhere to vent their own internal body heat, and we all die. You know, like unless you've got an air-conditioned cave somewhere with a generator to run the air conditioner so that you can fart more carbon dioxide to make it all worse. And she sort of didn't have any answer to that. People are educated up to the microscope, but they're not educated up to the ice core. Her attitude was that we've only got 220 years of climate records here in Australia, because she just doesn't accept the fact that you can go and look at pollen records, and you can look at tree rings, and you can look at ice cores and air bubbles locked in the ice, and you can accurately measure what the climate used to be a long, long time ago based on the evidence that's been left behind. So anyway, 97% of Australia's got a lot of shit karma in their pipeline that they elected to have when they voted for Tony Abbott, the budgie smuggling wingnut climate science denialist who says global warming is crap. And what did he do as soon as he heard there was a Russian battle fleet coming down the Barrier Reef? He got the English Prime Minister to run away to Canberra so they could hide behind Fort Denison, because that was constructed in 1857 to save Australia from the Russian Empire. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Life's interesting, isn't it? Ciao.